Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketing Science Lab podcast. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Sophie, ready to dive into some fascinating research as always.
Absolutely, Sophie. And this week's topic feels particularly relevant as we approach MLK Day of Service, a time when many people think about contributing to their communities. We're looking at a brand new study from the Journal of Nonprofit and Public Sector Marketing that explores how a nonprofit's brand strength influences its volunteers.
Ooh, interesting. So we're not talking about selling widgets here, but about the dedication and passion of volunteers. How does brand even fit into that picture?
That's the core of the research, Sophie. The authors, Walter Weimer and Liziana Najev, wanted to understand how a strong brand for a nonprofit impacts whether volunteers stick around and support the organization in other ways, like donating or even telling their friends to get involved. They surveyed over 600 active volunteers across Canada, and the results are pretty compelling.
Okay, spill the tea. What were the big takeaways?
Well, the main finding, and it might seem obvious, but now we have solid data to back it up, is that brand strength really does matter. A strong nonprofit brand positively influences a volunteer's intention to stay involved, both in the short term, like for the next year, and the long term, thinking about the next 5 years. They also found it impacts their willingness to donate, even considering leaving a bequest, which is when you arrange to leave money or assets to an organization in your will.
That makes sense intuitively. If you're volunteering for an organization you respect and believe in, a well-known and reputable one, you're probably more inclined to stay committed. Think about the Red Cross, for example. Their brand is practically synonymous with disaster relief.
Exactly, and they didn't just look at a general idea of support. The researchers specifically measured 6 different ways volunteers might support an organization: their intention to stay for 1 year, their intention to stay for 5 years, their willingness to donate money now, their intention to leave a bequest, as we just discussed, their intention to actively recruit new volunteers, and their likelihood of spreading positive word of mouth about the organization. And across all 6 of these, a stronger brand led to more positive intentions. The statistical analysis was done using something called partial least squares structural equation modeling.
Okay, Alex, you lost me a little there with the jargon, but the key takeaway is strong brand equals more supportive volunteers in lots of different ways.
Precisely. But here's where it gets a bit more nuanced. The study also looked at why this happens, and the big piece of the puzzle is organizational transparency.
Transparency, like being open about where donations go and how the organization operates?
Exactly. The research found that transparency acts as a partial mediator, especially when it comes to volunteers' willingness to donate or leave a bequest. What that means is that organizational transparency partially accounts for brand or partially channels some of the effect of brand strength on donations and bequests. So a strong brand creates a foundation of trust, and when that's coupled with openness about the organization's actions, it makes volunteers more likely to open their wallets.
That makes perfect sense. If I'm giving my time and especially my money, I want to know it's going to a trustworthy place that's making a real difference. No one wants to volunteer or donate to a black box.
Absolutely, and the researchers dug even deeper, looking at other factors that might influence this. They examined things like volunteer morale, how well volunteers are integrated into the organization, that's called organizational socialization, and the quality of the training they receive.
And what did they find? Do happy, well-trained volunteers stick around regardless of the brand?
Not quite. Interestingly, these factors didn't directly change the link between brand strength and support intentions. What they discovered was that while brand strength directly encourages support, factors like high volunteer morale, good training, and feeling well integrated actually strengthen the positive impact of transparency. Importantly, these factors didn't change the direct impact of brand strength on those support intentions themselves, but rather they amplify the indirect effect that brand strength has through transparency.
So it's like a multiplier effect, but specifically on the transparency piece. A strong brand opens the door, transparency builds trust, and a positive volunteer experience makes that trust even stronger, leading to more support.
You got it. Think of it this way. If a well-known charity isn't transparent about how it uses its funds, even loyal volunteers might hesitate to donate. But if that same charity is open and honest and also makes volunteers feel valued and well-trained, those volunteers are even more likely to donate.
That's a great way to explain it. So for any nonprofits listening, the message is clear. Don't just focus on your mission, build a strong, reputable brand and be incredibly transparent with your volunteers. And make sure they have a good experience.
Exactly. The researchers even pointed out that traditional volunteer management, focusing just on supervision, needs to broaden its scope to include these broader organizational factors like brand and transparency. It's about aligning the organization's culture and communication with its brand values.
It's not just about getting people to sign up, it's about fostering long-term relationships built on trust and a shared sense of purpose. This really ties into the spirit of MLK Day of Service, doesn't it? People want to contribute to something meaningful and impactful.
Definitely, and the study had some interesting, almost surprising findings too. For instance, age didn't have a huge impact on the core relationship between brand strength and commitment, although younger volunteers showed a slightly stronger intention for long-term retention and recruitment.
That's good to know. Sometimes we make assumptions about different age groups and their motivations.
Precisely. The researchers did note some limitations, of course. The data was collected at one point in time, so we can definitively say that a strong brand causes increased volunteer support long-term, though it strongly suggests it. They also used a convenience sample, meaning the volunteers weren't randomly selected, so we need to be a little cautious about generalizing the findings to every single nonprofit everywhere.
Right. Every study has its limitations, but this research provides valuable insights for nonprofits looking to build stronger relationships with their volunteers. It really highlights that volunteers aren't just free labor, they're invested stakeholders who care about the organization's reputation and how it operates.
Absolutely, and for those of us considering volunteering, it's a good reminder to think about the organization's brand and how transparent they are. It can be a good indicator of whether it's a place where you'll feel valued and where your time will make a real difference.
Definitely food for thought, especially as we approach a day dedicated to service.
Indeed, we'll put a link to the study in our show notes if you want to delve deeper into the methodology and specific statistical findings.
Careful there, Alex, almost slipped in one of those words we're avoiding.
You're right, almost forgot, but seriously, it's a valuable read for anyone involved in the nonprofit sector or interested in the science of volunteerism.
Agreed. Thanks for breaking down this important research, Alex.
My pleasure, Sophie.
So, as you consider how to give back this MLK Day, remember the power of a strong brand and the importance of transparency. Choose organizations that not only have a compelling mission, but also a reputation for integrity and openness. Your time and effort deserve to make a real impact.
This research really underscores that volunteers aren't just donating their time, they're investing in a brand, in an idea, in a mission. And transparency is the key to ensuring that investment feels worthwhile. So whether you're leading a nonprofit or looking for a place to volunteer, remember, brand strength and openness go hand in hand in creating lasting, impactful change. Thank you for listening to the Marketing Science Lab podcast. Don't forget to forward this episode to your favorite nonprofit. See you next week.